It has been called the comeback of a lifetime, Donald Trump's upcoming return to the White House in January. Pundits are spinning it as a revival of conservative sentiment in America, while Trump's opponents see it as nothing less than a coming dictatorship. But the real reason for Trump's selection to fill the president's role is decidedly more mundane. As I'll explain, his return has more to do with finishing the transformation of the nation's dominant form of government that was begun in his first term of office. Trump was responsible for many things during the years 2017 to 2020, but his primary accomplishment was in polarizing the political landscape. His abrasive personality and divisive rhetoric brought out the worst in the Democrats and heightened their hatred for the constitutional conception of America. In doing so, Trump brought them into a demonic frenzy that worsened by the year, paving the way for what happened in his final year in office. One of the things Trump did to facilitate the events of 2020 began a couple of years before that. In 2018, Trump started a trade war with China that inflamed that country to retaliate with massive tariffs against American goods. And eventually, the Chinese exacted the ultimate revenge against America by launching the COVID war, which ended up crippling the U.S. economy. Arguably, Trump's greatest accomplishment that year was activating the psychopaths within every level of state and federal government. By declaring a state of national emergency, he prompted them to follow suit, allowing them to become de facto dictators. All of which paved the way for what happened in 2021, namely the rollout of the COVID jabs. When those jabs were first proposed by Trump in 2020, the left protested that they wouldn't get them since they were being promoted by the man they despised more than anyone else. That's when it became necessary to install Biden in order to sell the left on the jabs. However, millions of people on the right resisted the jabs when it became obvious that something sinister was afoot. As a result, an estimated 30% of Americans, most of them conservatives, have not received the injections, which is likely a big reason why Trump was brought back into power. Under a Kamala presidency, the resistance to another jab mandate push would undoubtedly have been extremely fierce. But with Trump back in office, the powers that be apparently believe there will be far less resistance. Call it the Great Immunization. That's the term that could be used to describe Trump's commission for the work he's about to perform on America in 2025. Now, the nation's ruling class has made it clear they have big plans for America, and those plans are predicated on everyone being immunized before they can begin to usher in new technologies like the digital ID, central bank digital currency, and other high-tech features of the incoming totalitarian state. I don't pretend to know the exact contents of those shots that they want everyone to have, but undoubtedly it's a prerequisite for their digital scheme. Hence the reason for Trump's return to the White House, namely so that he can convince the millions of holdouts to take the jab before the digital economic initiative can be fully realized. Now, how exactly will the next wave of immunizations be administered is the obvious question. Now, to answer that, we can turn to none other than Google, whose picture search feature has been prominently displaying the dominant imagery for the year 2025 in recent months. By going to Google image search and typing in the term 2025, an array of images is shown which depict apocalyptic themes for the coming year, all of which can fall into the category of predictive programming. One of those prominent images depicts a stark landscape under the heading Lockdown 2025, while another features the image of a man putting on a black medical mask, an obvious reference to the episode that preceded the first round of immunizations 4 years ago. Yet another conspicuous image foretelling what our overlords evidently have planned for us is the title of a movie called 2025, Blood, White, and Blue. Now, as you can see here, it shows a man wearing a mask with his finger over his mouth, indicating secrecy, with various masked personas performing simulated acts of violence. The tagline for this movie ad is, "This is not a test, God help you," and then a curse word that begins with the letter B. As if that wasn't enough to drive home the message that the ruling class wants us to know, a Google image search for 2025 also reveals an in-your-face reference to yet another pandemic, replete with a masked individual and the symbol of a coronavirus, along with what appears to imply a crashing economy or financial market. And just as the masks served as a preface to the immunizations of 2021, no doubt a return of masking in 2025 will fulfill the same purpose. Finally, and most ominously, there's a depiction on the 2025 Google image search showing Trump holding a Bible, and behind him is the backdrop of the U.S. Capitol building surrounded by a pool of blood with the image of a crucified man on top of the building. Could this be a reference to a coming martyrdom of the incoming president once his task has been completed? Only God knows the full extent of the evil that no doubt lies ahead of us. But if the predictive programming we've looked at is only partially accurate, we've got an exceedingly tumultuous year to look forward to. Well, this is South Bay. Thanks for listening.